Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rebels Compass and our Monday evening again, coaching corner. And I'm here with the lovely Margaret Dennis from Evolve Coaching. So, hi, Margaret. It's great to have you back.
Hi, Karen. It's always good to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I love being able to just throw something out and say, let's just see what comes up, because which is typical for nothing's ever planned, right? We don't say, oh, this
No.
is going to be the subject. We get on like 2 minutes before we're going to do the video and go like, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah.
So one of the things that came up as I was looking in my books and different things that I have here and cards, I was like, what are we going to talk about today? And what dropped out was a card that said, what does it mean to be you? So that's the conversation that we're going to go with today. Have you ever considered what it means to be you? Who are you? What do you do when you are being you? Or are you being a people pleaser? So this is going to be one of those conversations that kind of go all over the place between Margaret and I, because I'm sure we've got a million and one of
Sure.
examples of how we were that until
hmm
we discovered something else. So is there anything you want to jump in with, Margaret?
Um, Interestingly enough, that is actually one of the biggest focuses on a camp that we're doing next week for the girls. That Unshakable Me is all
Yeah,
about discovering being you, the authentic you, and how to become that person and recognize that person. I think for so many of us, especially women, and I know we talk about this all the time, especially women. I don't know why it's always women, but especially women, we struggle a lot with being who we truly are. I think that there's that fear of judgment that comes in. Like, if you really show who you really are, people aren't going to like you. They're going to judge what you like to do or don't do, or who you are, or how you act, or what you say. And so we shrink back from really exposing the real us and really leaning into the real us. And like you mentioned, we start to become more of the people pleaser and more of the river that's bending and winding around the rocks rather than being the boulder that's standing firm in who they are. And I
mm-hmm.
think it's part of our nature of being the nurturer and the pleasers and trying to make it nice and pleasant for everybody else, but at our own sacrifice of being who we truly are. And
Mm-hmm.
how many of us go through life and end up like, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, or older, just feeling really depressed and anxious and not happy and not fulfilled and wondering why. Why am I not?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you bringing up the kids workshop that you're doing is a perfect place to start, because when we're raising our children in a way that so one of the things that I remember from my parents when they raised me was, don't do that, what will the neighbors think?
Mm,
Don't shout too loud in the house because the neighbors will hear you. Don't be running around up and down the street doing X, Y, and Z, because that's going to give a wrong impression.
mm,
Don't sing because you sing out of tune, or don't laugh too loud, because little girls aren't supposed to laugh so loud. You need a dainty, you need a hee 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 kind of laugh, not a belly laugh. So as we're raising our children not to be authentically themselves. I
mhm,
know there's a young lady that very often comes here, and she is constantly told she's too loud and too much.
mm,
So at 13, 14, when you're constantly being told you're too loud, you're too much, we shrink. We
mhm,
shrink into this tiny shriveled up version of the real person that's inside. And we continue to live our life playing roles and putting on hats to serve the people around us, to be the person they want us to be.
mhm,
I'm going to be a really good girl over here. I'm going to be a really good boy over here. Boys and girls the same. If you've
mhm.
got a dad that's saying, boys don't cry, toughen up,
Yeah.
just pull your socks up, you'll get through that. You know, a boy that maybe wants to be a dancer, but his dad's a bricklayer. No, you gotta lay bricks. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're constantly telling our children not to be authentically themselves, not to be the person they were born to be. We're molding them in to another version that just fits into society.
Oh, 100%. And we actually spoke about this today on our book club meeting. We were reading the book, The Mountain Is You. It's amazing.
I saw that
Um,
posted.
yeah, I was like, oh, everyone has to read this book. But I was along the same ideas of how do you change who you are? And we got into that conversation exactly that back when you're a child and you're a teenager, you have everyone around you, your parents, your teachers, your friends, even their parents, everybody telling you or giving you feedback as to whether your behavior is acceptable or not, whether who you are in that particular moment is acceptable or not, and how to fit into the molds that society has deemed as acceptable or what was the other word we used today? Proper,
Yeah.
like you have certain roles to fulfill and certain ways to be. And I know for me, I've always had a very loud personality, but it has been dampened. And I always say to people, I think I'm too much for people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And because when I'm in my true self, I'm out there and I'm having fun and I'm passionate about life and what I do. And that's when I really feel like I'm my authentic self. And for a long, long time, I was told I was too loud, same as you, right? I
Yep.
was too loud.
Too loud,
I
too
was
much.
too, yeah, I was too much of whatever it was I was. And so I learned to shrink that. I learned to be the people pleaser. Oh my goodness. You could give me an award medal. It's my picture in the dictionary. You put people pleaser, I was there. And you learn how to do that because after a while, when you're growing up, you don't want to have those negative replies to you, those negative responses to who you are, right? Because you're like, oh, they're just going to tell me not to do it. Or, oh, I remember last time I got judged. And your body remembers those things, right? Your body internalizes those feelings of judgment and rejection and um, anger, whatever was directed at you for however you were being. And you could have just been laughing and having a great old time and really enjoying the moment. And all of a sudden, you're being told that that's too loud. You can't laugh like that. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it totally blows out that flame of authenticity. And you internalize that. And it's like that memory now becomes something that it was fun at the time, but now it's not really a good thing. Now I associate that good time with judgment, that being myself with being judged. And we start those connections really young.
Exactly. And just as you mentioned, then the body keeps score. Every single
It
solitary
does.
emotion, every experience that we have, even when we can say intellectually, oh, I moved through that, your body keeps score of that and your body remembers that. So as you mentioned, as we're going through life, through our job, in relationships and different people that we meet, I find particularly women, become the chameleon. They morph themselves into fitting into a relationship. I know I've done this myself. When you are that people pleaser, when you're that person that just wants everybody to like them and love them because you don't feel worthy inside of yourself, you morph into the person that you believe that person wants to see so that you're liked and loved. But none of it's authentic. It's what we do when that wounded child inside of us that was never allowed to be the child with the personality, the loud personality, or the, whatever that is, the creative side, the dancer, the person that scribbled on every single placemat and doodled and got into trouble for it every time they did it, because they wanted to do art, but art wasn't something that was accepted, in a home. Then that puts that dampens the personality, it dampens. But what it does is it creates an identity. And that identity is the thing that we find the hardest to break free from. Because you cannot outperform your identity.
No.
You have to change your identity or re-emerge your true identity in order to break free from a lot of those limiting thoughts and patterns and trying to fit in where you're not being yourself.
Mm-hmm. And when you're trying to fit in so hard, you're trying so hard to be accepted, right? It's that whole thing about creating that connection. Humans
Mm-hmm.
require, like, we thrive on connection. And when we realize that being ourselves is going to cut off that connection, or we're going to be judged or whatever for it, we will shape and mold and people please and become this other person and have that new identity as that person, so that we are accepted and we do create those connections. But it's still like putting a square peg in a round hole. It
Mm-hmm.
never really fits, right? And then you're constantly on the lookout for, how do I have to act? How do I have to be? How do I have to say? What do I have to say? How do I have to dress? Where do you're always constantly second guessing your behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
it's stressful and it's exhausting, and it does lead to things like depression and anxiety. And when you get into those places, it's even harder for you to break free of the new identity mold that you put yourself into,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's like you're coming at it with even being further down the hole, right? Being further down into this identity that you feel helpless to get out of. But you still, at this point, probably have lost touch a lot with who you really are. You just don't feel like you still fit, right? There's always this
Exactly.
feeling of, I'm doing all these things and people seem to be liking me and I seem to be getting along with everyone, but it's still just, there's something inside of me that doesn't quite feel right.
You know, it's interesting that you use that word, that I don't really fit, because I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot from people I'm coaching. I hear that a lot from young adults, that I don't really fit. I don't really fit. I'm My belief is part of the reason why they don't fit is because they're being molded into somebody else's version of who they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say those words to yourself, I don't really fit, I've never really fitted in, then what aspects of you have you completely forgotten about? Have you completely disassociated with, that actually make you who you are? And yes, you may vibrate over here at a slightly different image of somebody else, but you will attract in other people that are just like you,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many people that feel like that. Because, and school, like school and religion, I mean, it's not just about being at home and our parents. You know, we parent ourselves. As parents, we parent from our own limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and we teach our limiting beliefs to our children in the process of trying to build them up. Okay, so we will
Mm-hmm.
say one thing, but we behave another.
Right.
Okay, example for this one for me was, all three of my children, it was like, I speak your truth. No matter what it is, speak your truth, be bold, speak up, speak your truth. Because it was something I never did. But when they spoke their truth to me, it was like, wait a minute, I'm your mother, you don't get to speak to me like that. It's like, so it was like, over here, I want you to be this. I want you to be that bold person, but I don't want you to be that bold person with me. So there's a different set of rules with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until many, 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 many years later that I went, that was interesting. I recognized that I'd done that.
Mm-hmm.
When we're parenting our children from our personal limiting beliefs, we end up molding them into mini versions of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
asking them to fit into molds that are acceptable for us and that they don't break free. So it's not just about them embarrassing themselves, it's that you don't want them to embarrass you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
I mean, that's,
Oh.
I recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
I do recognize that. So when you have somebody that says, I don't fit in, I don't fit in, who are you really? Like, what is it about you that doesn't fit? Do you not fit into the normal structure of school, which a lot don't? So how can you, what is it that you can bring forth so you feel more comfortable in yourself?
Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of deep diving back into yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
It
does.
really takes some time to peel back the layers of this identity that you've created over decades, quite often,
Yeah.
and really figure out, where was this identity shaped? Who was I? I think one of the most, um, or one of the men, like, I've done a number of visualizations in working through a lot of my own stuff to try and figure out, where things. But one of the ones I did once was, it was like, go back in time to a place where you felt like you were truly yourself, and what were you doing and where were you? And I think I ended up at 4, and
Hmm.
I was running around in a little dress and laughing and such a free spirit, but I couldn't find anything after 4. And it was like, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so who was that girl? Who was that girl at 4 years old that was running around free spirited? And that 4 year old cusp, right? You're still allowed to be crazy and a kid and running around. You're still being told, don't do this, don't do this, but you still have that free spirit.
Hmm.
But then it almost coincides with going to school, right? You
Yeah.
get off into kindergarten and preschool, and then you're into the system
Hmm.
of, rules at school and how you should behave, and don't do this and don't do this, and you can't wear this and you can't, say this, and all the rules of behavior at school, and then combined with what your parents are trying to say. But it's interesting that I think you and I have both worked with women and trying to help them figure out who their authentic selves are. It's like, okay, let's really think about, what do you like to do? What kind of things make you happy? When do you feel like you're the most relaxed version of yourself? Like, who are you in that moment? What's happening around you? Who are you with? And really starting to create that awareness for people, that it's like, okay, so when in your life have you actually felt that way?
Yeah.
A lot of them are like, I can't even remember.
And that's
And
really sad when you think about that.
it is.
You
It
know,
is.
and what you said about deep diving, that's when you need a coach.
100%. Oh, yeah.
That's when you need somebody who's going to be able to shine a light on a particular area, because we don't see our own blind spots.
Mm-mm.
We don't
No.
see that phrase, you don't see the wood for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
When we're deep,
Yeah.
when we're trying to work on our own stuff, okay, I've done this myself. I've got to a point and gone, okay, I'm good. But then I realize I'm not good. There's something else
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. So
Yeah. Me
you'll
too.
listen to a few more videos, read a few more books, and you understand it intellectually. And you understand it intellectually, and you'll go, but I know this,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't understand it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
It's
Or you
not on a soul
understand it.
level.
Yeah, you understand it on an intellectual level, but you don't know it. And I know for me, it was huge events in my life that took me into not just understanding on an intellectual level because I'd read it, of knowing and falling into
Mm-hmm.
that and being able to pull that away, and having my own coaches that help me pull away these layers, and going, shining a flashlight and going, did you look over here? And I go, I don't want to look. And did
Yeah.
you look over there? Oh, look. And then when you look, you go, and then all of a sudden something cascades and you go,
Mm-hmm. Ah, yeah.
that makes sense. And once you know, you
Mm-hmm.
can't unknow. So then it becomes a choice.
Right. Right.
So that's when the
And
authentic self comes back in.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I know I've had the exact same things happen to me, where I'm like, I know these things on an intellectual level. And I know there's some things I've felt on a knowing level. And I know I work with clients every day and take them to those places so they can create their own knowing. But I've got to the point where I'm like, I think there's something still there and I can't see it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't figure it out. I think I know what, I'm pretty sure what it is, but I can't get to that next level. And I always turn to a coach at that point. And I always go, okay, you got to help me break through this or figure this out, because there's something else there that I'm not seeing. And I'm always, always amazed at what comes out, because it's never, ever what I thought it was going to be. Because it's so true. They give, part of coaching is taking people to another level of
Yeah.
awareness and understanding. And you and I both, right? We know the value of having someone else coach us.
Yeah.
we're coaches and we know what we can do, but it was to have somebody else take us to that place, because very, very difficult to take yourself to those really, really deep places alone, especially when you've got a subconscious going, you're not gonna go there. I'm not gonna show it to you.
Yeah.
So you don't get to go there.
Yeah.
So I quite often will call, I have colleagues and who have been trained in the same methodology as I have, and I'll be like, okay, I need a call. I
Yeah.
need you to help me break through some of this. And I have regular coaching myself, and it's so helpful.
Yeah.
And it's right. When you have that awareness, you never unlearn it. You
No.
never not know that part of yourself. And it is a choice. It's like, what do I do with this knowledge? Do I change, or do I continue to stay the same and feel what it is that I feel?
Yeah. I know one of the things that I say to some of my clients is, when they start on a coaching session like this is, the basement can be scary. The basement, when there's no light on in the basement and you can hear the furnace growling and all the gremlins are down there, basement can be scary. And the basement is where you're going to go. But as soon as you turn the light on, the basement's not scary anymore. And when you start to pull away the reason or what experience took place, that you decided it was safe for you to put a lampshade over your head and say, I'm going to dim my light because it's safer for me to hide. And the next event, I'm going to put one more lampshade on because I need to dim my light a little bit further because I need to hide. When you finally get into that basement and you turn that light on and you figure out it's safe for you to take those lampshades off, you start climbing back up those stairs from the basement, your authentic self. The person that has let go a lot of those lampshades, where you can say, you know what, I'm loud for a reason. You know what, I like to dance for a reason. I like to sing in the shower and I don't care if I'm out of tune. I'm just enjoying my life. But we spend so much time trying to please other people that we're just existing to please others. And there's only fleeting moments where we actually feel that joy within ourselves. And we need to find that joy more within ourselves so that we can be that authentic self that we were actually born to be.
And I think that's a key point to make to people too, is that when you feel that joy, that is when you're connecting to your authentic
Oh,
self.
yeah.
Just when you can feel, because with joy comes a sense of lightness and just being in flow and just existing in a space that is just pure and wonderful, and it feels like a key is fit into the right lock, like
Yeah.
everything just works. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're feeling this joy, you really are connecting to yourself on the deepest soul level of who you are. And everybody's joy is different, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
fun part, right? That's why we all complement each other, and that's what makes life interesting. We don't all have to be the same. Being
No.
the same is boring. And it's interesting that for a lot of people who have ventured and done the work, and they have created that joy in their life, and they have reconnected with their authentic self, every single one of them will tell you, you will find people who will accept you for who you are, not who you're trying to be.
Yeah.
And the
100.
people who want you to bend and weave are not your people.
No.
And that's a scary place to be in, because you got to trust that. I know I did. I had to trust that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm so glad I did, because the tribe of people that I'm surrounding myself with now are just incredible.
Yeah.
And I am filled with joy every time I'm with them, because it's easy and it flows and we connect on a soul level
Yeah. And you
that
can just be
you don't have
yourself.
to pretend. Yeah, you don't have to worry about, what do you say? What do you do? How am I acting? What am I wearing? They don't care.
No.
They're so in their moment too. And it's an incredible feeling. And
Yeah.
it's so worth the deep dives and the work and some emotional pain and whatever it is you need to do to get back to that place of being you. Just, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. I was just that word you use there, emotional pain. When we're not being ourselves, we carry a lot of emotional pain and we don't even
Mm,
realize it. one of the things that, again, that I share with people is we generally spend our entire adult life trying to avoid our childhood pain. So we carry that level of pain with us, and we're constantly trying to avoid that pain. So when you get to the point where you are working with a coach, or you're doing a deeper dive yourself in whatever form that is for you, whether it's online, in a book, watching or listening to podcasts, when you get to that point that you are feeling uncomfortable and it's bringing things up for you, that's a different kind of pain. That's a different kind of, you're not suffering anymore.
No.
You're not suffering in a life that you don't want to live. Now you're breaking through the pain and going through the emotion and breaking through the emotion so that you can merge on the other side being somebody that actually enjoys themselves.
And one of the biggest healing processes in that, Karen, is, you said it, you're feeling the emotion.
Yeah.
We have not allowed ourselves to feel those emotions because they are too scary. We're afraid that if we start feeling them, that's where we're going to live. But that's where you've been living on a very subconscious level.
100%. Yeah.
So if you can face them, face those emotions, face whatever happened, and allow your body to work through it, allow your emotions to be released, allow yourself to create that awareness, it creates so much more space inside of you to fill it with the good, fill it with the joy, and to release it, because your body will hold on to it until you do.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You're not
Yeah.
carrying those big boulders around in your backpack anymore.
No, no. Oh my goodness, this has been an amazing conversation tonight. It's gone by so quickly.
It has. It has. We're going to have to cover this subject again, I think, because
I think
so
so.
many different layers to it and so many different levels to it. But
Mhm.
for anybody out there that, you feel that discomfort, or that there's something inside of you and there's got to be more than this, I highly recommend investing in yourself. It's going to be the best investment you'll ever make, because the dividends that come from that, or the profit, if you want to use the analogy of investing money, that you will take from that, will carry you through for the rest of your life in ways that you can't even begin to imagine right now. I know for me, when I started my deep dive journey, if anybody had told me back then that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, because I broke through some of those limiting beliefs and those lampshades and those people pleasing things, I would have gone, absolutely not. That's too scary. That's just too scary. But on the other side of fear is your life waiting for you.
And it's your authentic life, full of joy. And it's with your tribe, it's with your people, it's where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is so worth the journey. It's hard, but it is worth the investment in yourself. 100%. I will say that over and over, because it's not just an investment for that 1 hour that you're with your coach, and it's an investment into the rest of your life.
Exactly. It keeps on paying.
Oh, it does. It does. And the more you do, the more you become.
Yeah,
So it's,
exactly.
yeah.
Before we go, Margaret, before we go, I want you to perhaps give one shout out for the workshop that you have coming up. And are there still places available on this workshop?
There are still a few places places available for a few more girls if they're interested. So we are running camp for teenage girls from July 17th to the 21st. It's called Unshakable Me. We have lowered the age range a little bit. We're going to do any girl who will be 12 this year up to, well, we originally said 18, but we're kind of looking at about 16 at this point. There are still spots available. We are going to be dealing with some of the most incredible topics. We're going to be talking about, how do you be yourself? How do you know that you're enough? How to deal with friends and enemies, the roller coaster of emotions. And then we're going to top the week off with them creating these amazing vision boards around who they want to be. And we're also doing a lot of really fun stuff with the kids too, some activities of like toy hacking and scavenger hunts and henna and bracelet making and all kinds of fun stuff too. So it's not just the heavy work, but it's so important that these girls start to recognize their emotions, be able to start looking inward for their own validation, as opposed to looking outwards for figuring out who they are. And if we can start working with them at this younger age and give them these tools, to help support them as they move through life, it's going to be so much better for them. And we are so excited. So if anybody is interested, you can send a message through Rebels Compass. The website you can come and check us out on is www.unshakable-me.com. And like I said, we still have spaces available for the one out at the Cedar Hill Schoolhouse just outside of Elmont. And we have a second camp in August at Blackstock, which is just north of Oshawa. So that one's August 14th to the 18th. So yes, we are so excited to be doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm excited too, because Karen's going to be there as a guest facilitator in our one coming
I'm
next week.
looking forward
Even a
to
bonus.
it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to
Thank
it.
you, Karen.
When we can teach our children how to navigate emotions instead of saying, oh, suck it up, suck it up. You know what? You create a very, very different adult.
Yes, you do.
And
yes.
That's the power right there. That's the magic right there. When you can teach someone how to navigate emotions, how to express them, even if they don't have the vocabulary, how to express them, then that gives them the power to step into a more loving person to themselves, a more empowered person to themselves, and find a very different path for themselves in life. So it's amazing what you guys are doing, and I'm honored to be part of it. So thank you very much, Margaret. And for everybody else, please share this video. You never know who needs to hear what we're talking about and who needs to either be involved or send one of their children to the camp that is coming up, or just needs to hear this conversation to perhaps start pulling layers away and asking them their own questions on what does it really mean to be me. So have an amazing day, everybody, and bye for now. We'll see you soon.